No one should have their life snatched away because of the color of their skin. And I do believe they targeted her.
Carol Jenkins arrived in Martinsville, Indiana on the foggy, humid afternoon of what proved to be nobody in that town fortunate day. This was September 16, 1968. Although no one in Martinsville was familiar with her, 30 years later, most of the adult population became acquainted with Carol Jenkins' brief and horrific experiences there. She was only 21 years old, a timid, polite, slender, and overall beautiful woman. The newspaper would describe her as a Negro girl. Growing up in a community like Rushville, Indiana, she entertained a recurring fantasy of moving to Chicago. On the tragic day, Carol was dressed in a white cotton turtleneck, a pair of olive green wool pants, a brown jacket, and a bright yellow scarf, making door-to-door sales with her colleagues. Around 7:30 p.m., it had been dark for a half an hour. Carol knocked at the door of a sweet couple named Don and Norma and apologetically explained that she was terrified. She claimed that some men in the dark sedan were pursuing her and shouting at her. Though she was unable to understand what they were saying, when Don Neal went outside, he didn't see the car she had described, but an unknown light-colored sedan parked near his house. The car's parking lights were on, but he couldn't see the occupants. He walked up and got close enough to see the license plate to take a mental note of the number. As he entered the house, the car drove away. Right away, the Neals phoned the Martinsville Police Department, which dispatched a patrolman who patrolled around for 10 minutes, long enough for Carol to tell her story for the second time. After he left, Norma Neal drove Carol around the neighborhood over several minutes in a failed effort to spot one of the other salespeople. Back at Neal's, Carol rejected their effort to remain with them until it was time for her to rejoin her colleagues. We tried to get her to stay, but she said, "I'd rather be no bother too long." Norma Neal told a reporter, "That sounds like her." Paul Davis reflected, 33 years later, "I always felt like she was very sweet, sort of a naive girl. She had a smile for everybody. She never was in any kind of trouble, never gave me any trouble. Carol didn't like imposing on anybody." At 8, she thanked the Neals and departed. Not quite an hour later, 10 blocks away, near the corner of Morgan and Lincoln Streets, a block shy of her destination, she collapsed on the sidewalk. Her discovery prompted a neighborhood teen to go into a nearby eatery and phone the police. She was alive when they arrived, but died shortly after an ambulance delivered her to the Morgan County Hospital. Only then her brown and wool jacket was removed, and barely blood-stained with turtleneck sweater, revealing a single stab wound left by the screwdriver. Police conducted their initial investigation without making any suspects. Jenkins' stepfather hired a private investigator to look into the issue more than 30 years later after growing impatient with the lack of progress. The cold case team of the Indiana State Police made their decision to review it shortly after. A breakthrough in the investigation in 2002 in the form of an anonymous letter to the Martinsville police identifying Kenneth Richmond as Jenkins' killer and stating Richmond's daughter, who was only 7 at the time, had seen the crime. Shirley McQueen, Richmond's daughter, was located by police, and she corroborated the information. She claimed that Jenkins was strolling down the street in Martinsville when her father and another man, whose name she was unsure of, happened to be passing through. After stopping, they attacked the young woman. While the other men were holding her behind, Richmond stabbed her with a screwdriver. From the back of the family automobile, McQueen saw the murder, and she claimed her father promised her $7 to keep it quiet. I guess $7 wasn't enough, because McQueen confided in a former sister-in-law many years later, who later penned the anonymous letter. Richmond, who had a history of committing violent crimes, ties to the KKK, was detained by the police spring. According to New York Times, Richmond was residing in Indianapolis, the nursing facility at the time, and it was 70 years old. He was charged with a first-degree murder and entered a not guilty plea and passed away from cancer before going to trial. Thank you so much for listening, and please join again. And please remember to subscribe and like for me. Thank you.